I'm Emily Williams, Public Information Officer for the Sacramento Police Department, and I'm here with Sergeant Sabrina Briggs, who will be discussing some of the less lethal options used in the protests recently.
Yeah, for the Sacramento area, we're, not foreign to actually having protests. The Sacramento is the capital of the state, and so we have protests on a daily basis. And so, like the incident that occurred on May 29th, now that protest started very peaceful in the Oak Park Market area.
Be safe. Appreciate you. It's all good, man. I know you got families too, man. Not everybody is bad.
And they actually marched down to our South Station. Once again, very peaceful, and as the role of the Sacramento Police Department, we monitor those protests, and that's what we're there for, to make sure that they can express their First Amendment rights in a safe manner. As the protests went on throughout the night, the crowd became violent towards officers.
We want you dead. Bitch, we want them to try to do a caravan so we can go piss on your grave, bitch.
I mean, at one point they were throwing bricks, they were throwing bottles, they were throwing large objects and striking our officers. There was an incident throughout the night after the protesters became very violent. There was a white SUV, and it's captured in our body-worn cameras. And one thing at the Sacramento Police Department, we have the body-worn camera footage that we can observe these things. That night, we also had our air unit up above and actually observed the white SUV trying to make their way through the protests and the crowd actually encircling that vehicle. If you see some of the footage from our body-worn camera vantage, you can see the crowd is actually very violent. And you see that our officers, after they went in to go rescue the SUV and make sure that they could get out safely, they had to retreat now because the crowd actually turned on them. In one of the officers' body-worn camera footage, you could actually see an individual who's standing out here, and he is armed with a knife. There's a knife, a large butcher knife in one hand, as well as a crowbar in the other. And he's actually approaching the officers while other members of the crowd were being very violent and throwing objects at those officers. So if I slow down the video, that the individual with the large butcher knife is actually approaching the officers in a violent manner. One of our officers utilized pepper ball rounds to try to get the individual to back up. As you can see, the pepper ball rounds were ineffective, and that individual continued to approach the officers, which prompted another officers to utilize our beanbag shotgun rounds. Those beanbag shotgun rounds actually forced that individual back into the crowd. Now, without the beanbag shotgun rounds, the only other option that an officer has in this situation would be to use deadly force. If you take away all the other less lethal options, the only option that we have in this situation where the individual is coming at a group of officers with a knife and not backing down would be lethal force. The crowd is now throwing bricks, rocks, large planters. At one point, they even threw a lit firework at our officer. As our officers were retreating back, there is also additional video footage where you see at one point, one of our sergeants gets separated from the group, and the crowd is physically pulling the officer away. So also, there's been a narrative, these protests have been peaceful. Like I said earlier, throughout the night, these weren't peaceful protests. They were throwing objects at our officers. At one point, hitting one of our officers, they actually slipped and fell, where the group actually had to turn their attention to pull and rescue that officer out of there. As you can see in these examples, it's very important that we have those less lethal options available to us.
Hey guys, my name is Officer Daniel De Leon. I'm with the Sacramento Police Department. We're going to go over some of our less lethal options that we have available to our patrol officers as well as all our officers on the department. On the table, I got some props for you. We got our beanbag shotgun round, our exact 40 millimeter round, our pepper ball round, and that's a 9 millimeter that we carry and we use only for lethal force scenarios. This beanbag round is a small woven little sack that has a bunch of small little balls in it that gets shot out of a shotgun. All the shotguns on our department are less lethal shotguns, so we have no lethal ammunition whatsoever in our department for shotgun rounds. All our officers are trained on the less lethal shotgun, as well as all of our officers are issued their own less lethal shotgun. This is a exact impact round. It's got a sponge tip. It's not rubber. One misconception right now is that our department shoots rubber bullets. That is not even close to the truth. This is an exact round, and you can see it's got a lot of give to it when it strikes its target. Here's an OC round. Looks very similar to a paintball round. Inside of it, if you get a good close-up of it, you can see there's some white powder in that, so that when it hits its target, the capsule will crack and the white powder OC will get on the target, hopefully deterring them from doing whatever act they were doing that we don't want them to do anymore. Obviously here, this is a 9 millimeter round. This is pretty common as far as what our officers carry on duty. So if you look at the options here on the table, if we take away the less lethal option of the beanbag round, the less lethal option of our pepper ball, the less lethal option of our 40 millimeter exact rounds, this leaves us with one option, and that's a lethal option for every scenario.